I was counting down the breaths. I was awoke the whole time.
It was the moment Jacob Blake thought he was about to die.
I was counting down my breaths, my blinks, because I was just staring right at the sky, watching the clouds. I'm just like, God, I'm coming. I guess this is it for me, but it wasn't.
The 29-year-old speaking out for the first time almost 5 months after being shot 7 times by police.
You didn't resist.
I resisted to getting beat on. What I mean by that is not falling, not letting them put their head on my neck. That's all I was thinking, honestly.
Blake is now partially paralyzed from the waist down. A moment captured by bystanders, eventually going viral. The encounter, marking the climax of a summer rocked by a reckoning.
Say her name!
Protesters adding the name Jacob Blake to their rallying cry, joining those of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, with calls for action echoing across America, from celebrities to athletes.
We are scared as black people.
Activists demanding justice for the ever-growing list of black victims shot by police.
I didn't want to be the next George Floyd. I didn't want to die.
In the moments before, on a hot summer day in Kenosha, Wisconsin, Blake had been celebrating his son Israel's birthday at the home of his son's mother, LaQuisha Booker.
He turned 8 years old that day. I'm cooking, just chilling, neighbors out, and ended up being an argument between my woman and the neighbor. I wanted to leave.
Booker didn't want him to leave with her rental car and called the police.
Today is his son's birthday, so I allowed him to spend a couple hours with him, but he's not giving me the keys to this rental, and that's all I'm asking for.
3 officers responded to what they thought was, quote, family trouble. Among them, 7-year veteran Officer Rustin Shesky.
Complainant says Jacob Blake isn't supposed to be there, and he took the complainant's keys and is refusing to give them back.
She decided that she didn't want me to take her car, the rental car. And I'm explaining to her, like, you know, my truck is in the shop. So I decided not to give her the keys. It was in her name.
On the way to the scene, officers are told there's a warrant for Blake on domestic violence offenses and sexual assault.
We have an alert at this address for 99 for that subject.
What are you doing when they show up?
At that time, I'm walking out. I hadn't done anything, so I didn't feel like they were there for me.
Records show that Officer Shesky recalls telling Blake, quote, let's talk about this, as Blake places one of the kids in the car. He then tells Blake he has a warrant and tries to arrest him.
They didn't say why they were there?
They didn't say anything to me.
Did they tell you that they had a warrant for your arrest?
No, I thought that it had been over with.
Police deploy a stun gun multiple times. Blake pulls the prongs out of his skin. Officer Shesky and Blake end up in a physical altercation on the ground.
We see you walk away from the officers after they try to grab you.
At that point, I'm rattled, you know. I realized I had dropped my knife. I had a little pocket knife. So I picked it up after I got off of him because they tased me and I fell on top of him. Kids was in there, probably face on the window. I'm about to get in here and check on my kids. In the video, you hear them saying, drop the knife. I think a couple people were saying that, but I didn't hear none of that.
Blake turns away from the officers and walks around the front of the vehicle towards the driver's side door.
What are you thinking at that point?
I had picked my knife up. I'm like, I'm not really worried. I'm walking away from them, so it's not like they're gonna shoot me. I shouldn't have picked it up. At that time, I wasn't thinking clearly.
You said that we can just look at the video. The video tells everything. Well, there are gonna be a lot of people who look at the video and say, in the video, you're walking away from the police. So why didn't he just stop and do what the police are asking him to do?
I couldn't hear that. All I heard was screaming. My ears was ringing, so it was all muffled.
If the police were fighting me, if they were tasing me, I would stop walking away from them, and they would have my attention.
And when they tased me, I had my hands up. So.
Officer Shesky's attorney insists, quote, the officers were compelled to use force once Blake began actively resisting their verbal commands. adding that the claim the officer didn't say anything to him during the altercation is, quote, preposterous. As Blake opens the door of the car, Officer Shesky claims Blake drove the knife toward his body. Blake denies this. Officer Shesky then grabs Blake by the back of his shirt and shoots him 7 times.
Put my hands up because I didn't want him to shoot me in my face or in my head or nothing. So at that time, I put my arms up, and he just kept shooting, kept shooting.
What's going through your mind?
My babies are right here, my babies. So after he stopped shooting me, I said, Daddy love you, no matter what. It was the last thing I said to them at that point. I thought it was gonna be the last. I thought it was gonna be the last thing I say to them. Thank God it wasn't.
According to records released by the Wisconsin Criminal Investigation, in the past, Blake was arrested for attempting to flee police, and for resisting arrest, these charges were dropped.
There are critics who are going to say, well, he's had run-in with the law in the past. He doesn't deserve any sympathy.
If you're a black person in America and you're not perfect, then they say, oh, it was justified. It's like our children have to be angels.
Days after the video was posted, voices calling for justice grew louder. The city of Kenosha enraged. By day, peaceful demonstrations calling for the officers to be held accountable.
This country is kind of like a box of matches right now, and we're just the match that got lit.
By night, parts of the city brought down in flames. The riots turning deadly when armed vigilantes clashed with protesters.
We're protecting from the citizens, and I just got pepper sprayed by a person in the crowd.
During the unrest, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was 17 at the time, shot 3 people. 2 later died. He was arrested the next day and charged with multiple counts of homicide. He has pled not guilty to all the charges, claiming he acted in self-defense. But now Rittenhouse, who's currently free on a $2 million bond, is making headlines yet again. Prosecutors are seeking to amend the conditions of his bond after images and video surfaced last week. The photos show the 18-year-old flashing signs associated with white supremacists and being serenaded with a song allegedly associated with the far-right group, the Proud Boys. His attorney denies any association with these groups. Many are comparing the treatment of Rittenhouse's arrest with Blake's.
17-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse. He is accused of killing 2 people at a protest over your case. And he walks past cops. He has an assault rifle. Have you seen that video?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When you see that, what is your thoughts when you see something like that happen?
Again, it wasn't a surprise to me. It was devastating. I mean...
Say it.
He's white. That's the difference.
There are 2 justice systems that govern America, one for black America and one for white America, which says, well, black people shoot first, ask questions later.
Last week, the prosecutor declined to press charges.
No Kenosha law enforcement officer in this case will be charged with any criminal offense.
He said Officer Shesky was justified in his use of force because Blake was armed with a knife, refused orders to drop it. Officer Shesky's attorney, in a statement, insists that, quote, race had absolutely nothing to do with the officer's actions. Blake was given every opportunity to comply with the officers, and he repeatedly chose not to. Shesky and the 2 other officers involved in the shooting remain on paid administrative leave.
What did you expect when you knew that the decision was coming up on if they were going to file charges or not?
I knew they were engaging in the intellectual justification of discrimination. As Martin Luther King said in the letter from the Birmingham jail, just because you say it's legal, that don't make it right. I mean, Black Lives Matter, America, and we keep giving you exhibit after exhibit after exhibit, yet you continue to tell us that we're not worthy of equal justice.
Blake and his attorney said they plan to file a civil suit against the Kenosha Police Department. Almost 5 months after the incident, Blake says he is now focusing on healing.
Unfortunately, I need help. all day. My mom, she's helping me get in and out of the bed. She helps me do a lot of stuff. It's changed 100%.
And we know your kids who were in the car. Have you had any conversations with them about this since it all happened?
When they seen me, they couldn't believe I was alive. My 8-year-old was just staring at me, you know. I've explained to him and broke it down to him, like, Daddy can die, but for some reason I didn't that day.